There is a particular kind of silence that only people over 70 truly know, not the silence of emptiness, but the silence that settles in when the noise of a lifetime finally begins to thin. The phone rings less often, the house grows still, the roles that once held your identity together, provider, protector, the one everyone needed, begin to quietly loosen. And in that stillness, something unexpected surfaces, not despair, questions. What truly mattered in all those years? What did I grip too tightly? And what, perhaps, is finally asking to be released? Most people read this stage of life as loss, as fading, as the slow closing of a door, but Buddhist wisdom sees it differently. In the Buddha's teaching, aging is not decline, it is clarification, a gradual uncovering of what was always true beneath the rush of living. Suffering, the Buddha taught, does not come from life changing, it comes from our refusal to let it. And after 70, life extends a quiet invitation, not to grasp harder, but to loosen the hand. In this reflection, we will explore 8 truths that only become visible when life has been lived long enough, not as rules, not as instructions, but as wisdom that arrives slowly, like light returning after a long winter. Before we continue, I want to say something briefly. Many teachings about aging sound poetic, but they often avoid the uncomfortable parts of growing older. The reflections in this video are not meant to romanticize aging. They are meant to help us see it more honestly and perhaps a little more peacefully. If you are over 70, you may recognize parts of your own life here. And if you are younger, you may simply be seeing a part of the road ahead. Truth 1. Stop waiting for life to begin. Here is something almost no one admits out loud. Most of us have spent the majority of our lives in a quiet, invisible waiting room. We waited to finish school. Then we waited to find work. We waited for the children to grow up. We waited for the mortgage to end. We waited for retirement to finally arrive so that real life, the peaceful version, the meaningful version, could begin. And then retirement came, and somehow the waiting did not stop. Now we wait for the children to call. We wait for the weather to turn so we can get outside. We wait for our health to improve. We wait for something to shift, something to change, something to finally arrive that will signal, now it is time. Now you may begin. But here is the uncomfortable truth that most people carry to their final days without ever examining. Life was never going to arrive. Because life never left. It was here the whole time. In every ordinary Tuesday that passed unnoticed. In every morning cup of tea that was swallowed in a hurry. In every quiet evening that was spent worrying about tomorrow instead of resting in the gift of tonight. The waiting did not protect you, it only postponed you. There is a story from the time of the Buddha about a man who traveled great distances searching for a teacher who could show him the secret to happiness. He climbed mountains, he crossed rivers. He gave away his possessions one by one, believing that each sacrifice brought him closer to the life he was meant to live. Finally, he arrived at a monastery and sat before an old monk. He said, "I have been searching my entire life. Tell me, when does peace begin?" The old monk looked at him for a long moment and then said something the man did not expect. "It began the moment you were born. You simply were not there to notice it." That story has stayed with me for years, because I think most of us are that traveler, moving through our days with our eyes fixed somewhere ahead of us, waiting for an arrival that has already happened. Buddhism teaches this with extraordinary directness. The present moment is not a stepping stone to something better. It is the only ground that exists. It is the only place where life is actually occurring. And yet the mind, especially a mind shaped by decades of striving, finds this almost impossible to accept. Surely there is something yet to come. Surely this ordinary moment is not it. But consider this. Sunlight does not wait for a more suitable surface before it decides to shine. It falls on worn floors and beautiful gardens with equal generosity. It does not ask whether the moment is worthy. It simply gives itself completely to whatever is present. That is what the present moment offers you. Complete generosity, no conditions, no requirements, no waiting list. After 70, this truth carries a particular weight, because by now, most of us have lived long enough to look back and see it clearly, all those moments we were too busy waiting to actually inhabit. The children were small, and we were worried about money. The money improved, and we were worried about health. The health held, and we were worried about time. There was always something standing between us and the life we believed was waiting just ahead. But you are here now, reading this, breathing, present, and that is not a small thing. That is everything. So today, I want to offer you one simple practice. Not a grand transformation, not a resolution, just a moment. At some point today, put down whatever you are carrying mentally, the list, the worry, the background noise of things undone. Find one small thing in front of you and give it your full attention. A cup of tea, the quality of light in the room, the sound of wind through a window, the warmth of your own hands resting in your lap. Do not rush past it. Do not treat it as a pause before the next task. Let it be enough, because it is. It always was. Life did not go anywhere. It has been here, quietly waiting, not for circumstances to change, but for you to arrive. You can stop waiting now. You are already home. Truth too, your energy is now sacred. Think back to who you were at 40, or 50, or even 60. You could push through exhaustion. You could sit across from someone who complained for 2 hours and somehow find the patience to stay. You could carry the emotional weight of an entire family on your shoulders and still wake up the next morning and do it all again. That capacity was real, and for a long time it served you well. But something has shifted. You may have noticed it gradually, the way a season changes not all at once, but one quiet degree at a time. The long gatherings leave you needing days to recover. Certain conversations pull something out of you that does not return easily. The people who once felt merely difficult now feel genuinely draining in a way that goes deeper than tiredness. This is not weakness. This is not decline. This is your life telling you something true. After 70, energy is no longer something you have in surplus. It is something you have in measure. And what exists in measure must be treated with a completely different kind of respect. Yet here is what so many people do instead. They keep giving. They say yes when every part of them is whispering no. They answer the phone from the person who always leaves them feeling worse. They sit through conversations built entirely of complaint and bitterness, and they call it loyalty. They allow their inner quiet to be disturbed again and again, and they tell themselves this is what love requires. But I want to ask you something gently. When did compassion come to mean the slow erosion of your own peace? The Buddha taught with remarkable clarity on this point. Compassion, true compassion, the kind that actually helps, does not flow from depletion. It flows from stillness. A person who has given away every drop of their inner calm has nothing left to offer anyone. Not really. What they offer instead is a performance of presence, a hollow version of care. There is a teaching that has always moved me. A monk once asked his teacher how he could serve others when he himself was struggling. The teacher said simply, "You cannot pour from an empty vessel. First, fill yourself, then give from the overflow." That is not selfishness. That is wisdom. Think of a small candle. It cannot light an entire city. It was never designed to. But placed in a room, it can push back the darkness completely. It can make the space warm, navigable, safe. That is enough. That is what a candle is for. You are that candle now, not the floodlight you may have been in earlier years, illuminating everything and everyone around you at great personal cost, but a quieter, more deliberate light, one that chooses where it shines, one that protects its flame so that it can continue to burn. And here is what no one tells you about this stage of life. The people who truly love you, who genuinely benefit from your presence, do not need you to exhaust yourself for them. They need you steady. They need you present. They need you to still be there next week, next month, next year. And that requires that you stop treating your energy as something to be spent freely and start treating it as something to be tended carefully. So here is the practice I want to leave with you for this truth. For the next few days, simply notice, after you speak with certain people, how do you feel? Not during the conversation, when politeness and habit take over, but afterward. When the call has ended and the room is quiet again, do you feel lighter? Do you feel seen? Do you feel some small measure of peace? Or do you feel as though something has been taken from you? You do not need to make dramatic decisions. You do not need to make announcements or sever anything suddenly. Just notice, because noticing is where wisdom begins. And then, slowly, gently, with full compassion for everyone involved, including yourself, begin choosing accordingly. This is not bitterness. This is clarity. Your energy is sacred now. Treat it that way. Truth 3. You do not need to carry the past forever. There is something that happens in the quieter years of life that nobody quite prepares you for. The memories come back, not in order, not on invitation. They simply arrive, the way weather arrives without asking permission, without announcing themselves, filling the room before you even realize they have entered. Some of these memories are warm. A child's laughter on a particular afternoon, the feeling of a hand held at exactly the right moment, a summer that seemed to last forever and somehow still does, in a corner of the heart that time has not yet reached, but others are heavier. The argument that ended something irreparably, the words spoken in anger that you would give almost anything to take back, the moment you chose the wrong thing or failed to choose at all, and watched the consequences ripple outward for years, the relationship that ended badly, the apology that came too late or never came at all. Many people, by the time they reach 70, have been carrying these memories for decades. Quietly, without realizing, the weight has become so familiar that they no longer recognize it as a burden. It has simply become part of how they walk through the world, slightly heavier on one side, moving a little more carefully than they need to. Here is the truth that took me a long time to accept. The past cannot be changed, not by replaying it, not by re-examining it from every possible angle, not by imagining, in the early hours of the morning, how things might have gone differently if only one small thing had shifted. The past can only be carried, and you get to decide, starting now, what you are still willing to carry. Buddhism has a teaching that I return to again and again when I think about this. It is sometimes called the doctrine of the 2 arrows. The first arrow is the pain of what happened. Someone hurt you. You made a mistake. Something was lost. That arrow lands, and it is real, and it causes genuine suffering. No one is asked to pretend otherwise. But then there is the second arrow, and this one we fire ourselves. It is the repetition, the rehearsal, the mind that returns to the original wound, not once, but hundreds of times, thousands of times, across years and decades, pressing the same point, opening the same place, asking the same unanswerable questions. Why did this happen? Why did I do that? What if things had been different? The first arrow was not your choice. The second arrow always is. I once heard about an elderly woman who had carried a particular regret for nearly 40 years, a falling out with her sister over something that, by the time she described it, had become almost impossible to explain clearly. She could not fully remember how it started. She remembered only the feeling, the hot, tight feeling of being wronged, and then of having responded wrongly in return. Her sister had died years before they reconciled, and this woman carried that unfinished story like stones in her coat pockets. Everywhere she went, in every quiet moment, the weight was there. When someone finally asked her what she thought her sister would want for her now, she was silent for a long time. Then she said, "She would want me to put it down." That is the question worth sitting with. Not what happened, but this. What would it feel like to simply set it down? Imagine you have been walking a very long road, and somewhere early in the journey, you picked up stones. One for each regret, one for each wound, one for each moment you wish had gone differently. You have carried them so long you have stopped noticing they are there. But they are there. And the road ahead, however long or short it may be, does not require them. So here is the practice. Find a quiet moment today. Sit with whatever is soft and still around you, and ask yourself, without judgment, without urgency, what memory am I still carrying that no longer needs to travel with me? You do not need to resolve it. You do not need to understand it fully. You only need to recognize it, to see it clearly for what it is, not a truth about who you are, but a stone you picked up a long time ago on a road you have already walked. And then, gently, imagine setting it down. Not forget, just releasing. The road ahead is lighter than you know. Truth 4. Aging is not loss, it is depth. We live inside a culture that has made a religion out of youth. You see it everywhere. In the advertisements that promise to reverse the clock, in the language people use anti-aging, fighting aging, defying age as though the natural movement of a human life were something to be defeated. In the quiet but unmistakable message delivered daily through screens and magazines and casual conversations that to grow older is to become less vital, less relevant, less visible. And so, when the body begins to slow, when the stairs take a little longer, when the face in the mirror carries more history than it once did, when the energy of earlier decades no longer arrives on demand, many people interpret this as disappearance, as if they are becoming smaller, as if life is subtracting them, piece by piece, from a world that has already moved on. I want to offer a different way of seeing this, not as comfort, not as reassurance, but as something I believe is simply, quietly true. What aging removes is not your life. What aging removes is the noise that surrounded it. Think about what filled the earlier decades. The relentless pressure to prove yourself, the anxiety about how others perceived you, the striving, the comparing, the performing, the managing of appearances, the exhausting effort of maintaining an identity in a world that was always evaluating whether you measured up. All of that generated tremendous noise. And in the middle of that noise, It was almost impossible to hear anything deeper. But now, much of that noise has fallen away. The need to impress has quieted. The urgency to keep pace with everyone else has softened. The crowds of obligation and ambition and competition have thinned, and in their absence, something becomes possible that was not possible before. You can finally hear yourself think. Buddhism has understood this for centuries. There is a reason that so many of the great teachers in the Buddhist tradition did their deepest work in the later years of life. Not despite their age, but because of it. The Buddha himself spoke of how the mind, when it is no longer agitated by craving and grasping, becomes capable of seeing things as they actually are, not as we wish them to be, not as we fear them to be, but as they are. That kind of seeing requires stillness. And stillness, for most of us, only becomes genuinely available after the storms of middle life have passed. There is an image I return to often. Imagine a lake on a windy day. The surface is broken and restless. The light scatters. You cannot see the bottom. You cannot see your own reflection. Everything is movement and disturbance and noise. But then the wind stops, and slowly the surface calms, and what becomes visible is extraordinary. The sky above reflected perfectly. The depth below suddenly apparent. The clarity that was always there, waiting beneath the agitation. That is what age offers, if you are willing to receive it. This is something many older viewers of this channel often tell me in the comments, that life becomes quieter but strangely clear. Not the loss of the lake, the stilling of the surface. I think of a man I once heard about who had spent his career as a surgeon. Precise, driven, operating at the highest levels of pressure for decades. When he retired in his early 70s, he expected to feel relief. Instead, for the first 2 years, he felt strangely lost. The noise that had defined him was gone, and he did not know who he was without it. But gradually, in the quiet that followed, something unexpected began to emerge. He started noticing things he had never had time to notice. The particular quality of light on winter mornings, the way a conversation could hold more meaning when it was not squeezed between obligations, a patience with uncertainty that he had never been able to afford when every decision carried life or death weight. He told someone later, "I spent 40 years knowing a great deal, and now I am finally beginning to understand something." That distinction matters enormously. Knowledge is what we accumulate. Understanding is what we become. And understanding, real understanding, the kind that changes how you move through the world, cannot be rushed. It cannot be downloaded or achieved or performed. It arrives slowly, through decades of living, through loss and recovery, through the gradual shedding of everything that was never essential. So here is the practice for this truth. Sit quietly for a moment and ask yourself this: what do I understand now about life, about people, about what actually matters, that I could not have understood at 30? Not what you know, what you understand. The answer, if you sit with it honestly, will surprise you, because what age has given you is not nothing. It is not a smaller version of what you once had. It is something rarer, something that cannot be bought or borrowed or hurried into existence. It is depth. And depth, unlike youth, only grows with time. Truth 5. You are allowed to simplify your life. Walk through your home slowly sometime, not with purpose, not on the way to somewhere else. Just walk through it the way a stranger might, seeing it freshly, noticing what is actually there. The shelves carrying objects that have not been touched in years. The drawers that resist closing because of everything pressed inside them. The closets holding clothes from decades ago, kept for reasons that made sense once, but are difficult to articulate now. The paperwork the keepsakes, the gifts that felt impossible to discard, the things acquired during chapters of life that have long since closed. Most of us, by the time we reach this stage of life, are living inside a physical record of everything we have ever been. Every role, every phase, every version of ourselves that once needed particular things around it to feel secure or capable or complete. And the weight of all that accumulation is not always obvious. It settles gradually, the way dust settles. You stop seeing it after a while, but it is there, and somewhere beneath the surface, the mind feels it. Here is something I have noticed. The state of the outer space and the state of the inner space are almost never as separate as we imagine. A room crowded with things that no longer serve you creates a subtle but persistent pressure. It is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. But it hums in the background of your days. A low frequency of unfinished business, of accumulated obligations, of a life that has outgrown its container but has not yet been given permission to shed what it no longer needs. And it is not only the physical. There is another kind of clutter that is harder to see and heavier to carry. The obligations you said yes to years ago and have never found a way to exit. The family expectations that were handed to you before you were old enough to examine whether you actually agreed with them. The roles you performed for so long that you forgot they were roles, the strong one, the reliable one, the one who never complains, the one who holds everything together. The standards you set for yourself in a different season of life and have been failing to meet ever since, quietly, without ever questioning whether those standards still belong to you. Not everything needs to be preserved. This is a radical sentence for many people, because we have been taught, in ways both obvious and subtle, that keeping is virtuous and releasing is suspect. That to let go of something is to say it did not matter. That to simplify is somehow to diminish. But Buddhism has always understood what the cluttered modern mind resists. Letting go is not loss, it is the creation of space. And space is not emptiness. Space is where peace actually lives. There is a story of a monk who was known throughout his region for the profound stillness he carried. People would travel long distances simply to sit near him, because the quality of calm he embodied was unlike anything they encountered in ordinary life. When asked his secret, he said something unexpected. He said, "I have spent 30 years learning what I do not need, not accumulating wisdom, releasing what obscured it. That is the direction simplicity moves. Not toward less life, but toward a clearer experience of the life that remains." Think of a room filled wall to wall with furniture. You can be inside it, technically, but you cannot move freely. You cannot breathe easily. You cannot see what is actually in the room because everything is pressed so tightly together that nothing stands out. Everything competes with everything else for the limited space available. Now imagine removing half of it. Suddenly the room reveals itself. The light falls differently. The remaining pieces, the ones that were always worth keeping, finally have room to be seen. That is what simplification offers, not absence, revelation. So here is the practice, and I want you to take it seriously, despite how small it sounds. Choose one thing to release today. Just one. It might be an object sitting somewhere in your home that you have been holding out of guilt rather than love. It might be a commitment that has outlived its meaning. It might be an old expectation of yourself, something you once believed you were supposed to be or do or achieve that no longer fits who you actually are. Release it. Give it away, or set it aside, or simply say quietly to yourself, "I no longer need to carry this." And then notice what happens in the space it leaves behind. That space is not nothing. That space is where your next breath of peace is waiting. Truth 6. Comparison quietly steals joy. There is a thief that moves through the later years of life without making any sound at all. It does not announce itself. It carries no obvious weapon. It arrives in the most ordinary moments, watching a grandchild run across a garden, seeing a younger colleague speak with effortless confidence, scrolling past photographs of people whose lives appear to be just beginning while yours feels, in certain quiet moments, like it is winding down. The thief is comparison. And by the time most people recognize it, it has already taken something that is very difficult to recover. It works like this. You see the energy of the young, and you remember when your own body moved like that, without negotiation, without consequence. You watch someone in their 40s still building things, careers, families, futures, and something in you aches for a starting line you can no longer find. You look at the speed of the world around you, and you measure yourself against it, and you come up short, every time. Because the measuring stick was never designed for you in the first place, and so a quiet grief sets in. Not dramatic enough to name, not sharp enough to address directly, just a low and persistent sense that something has been lost, that the best chapters are behind you, that life's most vivid colors have already faded. But here is what comparison never tells you. It only ever shows you one side of the ledger. It shows you what youth has. It never shows you what youth lacks. The young have energy, yes, but do they have perspective? The young have time stretching before them, yes, but do they yet know which parts of life are actually worth that time? They have not yet sat with genuine loss and found that they could survive it. They have not yet watched something they loved deeply come to an end and discovered, slowly, that life continued and even deepened on the other side. They have not yet earned the particular kind of quiet that only comes from having weathered enough storms to know that storms do not last. You have all of that. And it is not a small thing. Buddhism teaches a practice called mudita, which is sometimes translated as sympathetic joy, the genuine capacity to celebrate the happiness of others without feeling diminished by it. It is considered one of the most difficult qualities to cultivate, precisely because comparison is so deeply instinctive. The mind moves toward measurement almost automatically. It needs deliberate training to move instead toward appreciation. But the Buddha also taught something else, something that speaks directly to this particular suffering. He taught that every living thing has its own nature, its own season, its own way of expressing life, and that suffering arises the moment we resist our own nature in favor of someone else's. A spring blossom and an autumn leaf are not in competition. They are expressions of the same life, moving through different moments of its cycle. To ask the autumn leaf to be a spring blossom is not just impossible. It is a misunderstanding of what the autumn leaf actually is. There is an image that has stayed with me for years. An ancient tree standing in a field, surrounded by young saplings pushing rapidly toward the light. The saplings are quick, they are flexible, they respond to every breeze. But the ancient tree does not watch them with envy. It cannot be toppled by the same winds that bend the saplings. It has weathered seasons those young trees have never encountered. Its roots reach depths that their roots have not yet imagined. The ancient tree's strength is not despite its age. It is inseparable from it. You are that tree, and the roots you have grown through every difficulty you absorbed, every loss you integrated, every year you continued showing up for a life that was not always easy. Those roots are not visible to the young people moving quickly past you, but they are real. They are yours. and nothing that is racing forward on the surface of life can take them from you. So here is the practice I want to leave you with. The next time you feel the pull of comparison, the next time you look at someone younger and feel that familiar ache of what has been left behind, pause, and instead of asking what you have lost, ask what you have gained that youth could never give. Ask what you understand now that took decades to learn. Ask what no longer frightens you that once kept you up at night. Ask what you would do differently, and recognize that knowing that difference is itself a form of wisdom that cannot be shortcut. Comparison measures life in the wrong direction. It asks how far behind you are. But the more honest question is how far you have actually come. And when you look in that direction, the view is remarkable. Truth 7. Forgiveness is freedom. There is a conversation that happens in the silence of the early morning hours that most people never speak about openly. It is the conversation the mind has with the past, with the version of you that said the wrong thing at a moment that mattered, with the choice that seemed reasonable at the time and revealed its full cost only years later, with the person you hurt without fully understanding until much later. Exactly how deeply, with the apology that was never given, the words that were never said, the door that closed before you reached it. By the time we reach the later decades of life, most of us have accumulated a private collection of these moments. We carry them with a kind of grim loyalty, as though continued suffering were the appropriate price for what we did or failed to do. As though if we punished ourselves long enough, thoroughly enough, the past might somehow be corrected. But it cannot be corrected, and the punishment never ends. That is the nature of regret when it is left unexamined. It does not resolve, it only repeats. The Buddha described this with an image so precise it has survived 2,500 years, because nothing has yet improved upon it. He spoke of 2 arrows. The first arrow is the original event, the mistake, the loss, the harm caused or received. That arrow lands and it causes genuine pain. This is unavoidable. This is simply what it means to be a human being, moving through a life with other human beings, making decisions without full knowledge, loving imperfectly, falling short of the person you intended to be. But then there is the second arrow, and this one is different, because this one you fire yourself. It is the replaying, the rehearsing, the returning again and again to a moment that is years or decades behind you, pressing it like a bruise to confirm it still hurts, asking questions that have no answers, revising a scene that cannot be revised. The first arrow was not your choice. The second arrow always is. And here is what makes this teaching so uncomfortable and so necessary. Most people believe they are honoring their regret by holding it. That releasing it would be a form of dishonesty. That forgiving themselves would mean pretending the harm did not happen, or that it did not matter, or that they were not responsible. But forgiveness is not any of those things. Forgiveness is not the erasure of the past. It is the decision to stop letting the past determine the present. There is a story in the Buddhist tradition of Angulimala, a man who had committed terrible acts before encountering the Buddha. By any ordinary measure, he was beyond redemption. His past was not ambiguous. The harm he had caused was real and irreversible, and yet the Buddha did not turn away from him. He looked at him with the same clear, undefended attention he offered everyone. And what he saw was not only what this man had done, he saw what this man was capable of becoming in this moment, in this breath, if he chose differently now. Angulimala chose differently, and he became, in the years that followed, a teacher of gentleness. The past did not disappear. but it was no longer the only thing he was. This is what forgiveness actually means. Not that what happened was acceptable, but that you are more than what happened. That the story is not finished. That the person who made that mistake was human, genuinely, completely, inescapably human, and that being human has always meant acting sometimes from fear, from ignorance, from exhaustion, from a version of yourself that did not yet know what you know now. You were human then. That is not an excuse. It is simply the truth. And the truth, when you can finally stand inside it without flinching, has a quality that no amount of self-punishment can ever provide. It has peace. Think about what you are holding right now. The coal of regret, gripped in both hands, carried everywhere you go. You have been holding it so long that you have stopped noticing the burning. But the burning has not stopped. It has simply become familiar. You are the one being burned. Not the past, not the person you wronged, you, and you are allowed to put it down. So here is the practice. Not a meditation, not a ritual, just one sentence, spoken quietly to yourself. Today, I was human then. And I am allowed to move forward. Say it once. Mean it as much as you can, even if you cannot mean it fully yet. Say it again, tomorrow, and the day after. Because forgiveness, like most things that genuinely change us, does not arrive all at once. It arrives the way morning arrives, gradually, almost imperceptibly, until suddenly there is enough light to see by. And in that light, you will find that you have been carrying something you were never required to carry this long. Put it down. You have walked far enough with that weight. Truth 8. It is not too late to live fully. There is a belief that settles into many people quietly, somewhere in the later decades of life. It does not arrive with fanfare. It does not announce itself as a belief at all. It simply begins to shape the way the future is seen, not as something open, but as something already determined. The belief sounds like this: my time for meaningful things has passed. The important chapters are already written. What remains is simply the closing of a story that reached its peak long ago. It is one of the most common beliefs among people over 70, and it is one of the most quietly devastating, because unlike a fear that can be confronted or a grief that can be processed, this belief simply dims things. It turns down the light on the present moment. It makes new possibilities seem not threatening but irrelevant. Why begin something when there is so little time left to complete it? But I want to sit with that question for a moment, because I think it contains a hidden assumption that is worth examining. Who decided that meaning requires completion? Who decided that a life well lived is measured by what was finished, rather than by what was fully inhabited in the living of it? The Buddha taught something that cuts directly against this assumption. He taught that meaning is not a destination. It is not something waiting at the end of effort to be collected like a reward once sufficient work has been done. Meaning arises in the present moment, from genuine engagement with whatever is actually in front of you, regardless of where you are in the arc of your life. A conversation held with full attention is meaningful. A meal prepared with care is meaningful. A walk taken slowly, with genuine curiosity about the world passing by, is meaningful. None of these require decades of time ahead of them to justify their value. They are complete in themselves, in the moment they occur. There is a story told of an elderly monk who came to practice very late in life. He had spent most of his years as a merchant, raising a family, building a business, accumulating the ordinary material of a full worldly life. It was only in his final years, when his children were grown and his body was beginning to slow, that he found his way to the monastery and asked to be taught. Some of the younger monks were privately skeptical. What could a man of his age hope to achieve? He had so little time. The path was long. The work was demanding. Surely it was too late for any real transformation. But the teacher accepted him without hesitation, and within 3 years of practice, this elderly merchant had found a quality of peace that the younger monks, with all their decades of practice still ahead of them, had not yet touched. When someone asked the teacher afterward how this was possible, the teacher said something simple. He came without the burden of thinking he had time to waste. That is the hidden gift in lateness. When you know that time is not infinite, you stop treating the present moment as a rehearsal for something more important coming later. You stop saving your full attention for occasions that feel sufficiently significant. You begin to understand, in a way that is almost impossible to understand when youth makes the future feel endless, that this moment, this one, right now, is not the waiting room. It is the room. A flower that blooms in late autumn does not apologize for its timing. It does not hold back its color because the season is nearly over. It simply blooms with the same complete commitment it would have brought to any other moment, because blooming is what it is made to do. And anyone who sees it knows that its lateness makes it not less beautiful, but somehow more. You are still blooming, perhaps more slowly than before. Perhaps in a quieter color than the vivid urgency of middle life. But the capacity for genuine engagement with the world, for curiosity, for connection, for the small daily acts of attention that make a life feel inhabited rather than merely endured, that capacity does not expire. It only waits to be used. So, here is the practice. And I want you to take it seriously, not as a motivational exercise, but as a genuine question deserving a genuine answer. What small thing still calls to your curiosity? Not what you think you should be interested in, not what seems appropriately humble for someone your age, but what actually draws you, even faintly, even quietly, in the direction of interest. A subject you always meant to explore, a skill you always told yourself you would learn someday. A place you have always wanted to see. A conversation you have been putting off because there would always be more time later. Begin there. Not grandly, not with a plan that requires years of commitment. Just begin, today. With the smallest possible step toward the thing that still calls to you, because as long as breath remains, life is still unfolding, and it is asking, even now, what you would like to do with it. It is not too late. It was never too late. It is simply now. We have walked through 8 truths together, and if there is one thread running quietly through all of them, it is this. After 70, life changes its request. For decades, it asked you to build, to strive, to carry, to provide, to push through and show up and hold everything together. And you did. You did all of that, more than most people will ever fully know or acknowledge. But the request is different now. Life is no longer asking you to add more. It is asking you to carry less. Less expectation of what others should give you. Less weight from a past that cannot be changed. Less energy spent measuring yourself against seasons that are no longer yours. Less fear of what is still to come. And in the space that carrying less creates, something begins to appear that all the striving of earlier life could never quite reach. More presence, more peace, a quieter and more durable understanding of what actually matters. The Buddha once taught that wisdom is not the accumulation of something new, it is the gradual clearing away of what obscures what was always there, like clouds parting, like silt settling in still water. The truth was never absent. We were simply too busy, too burdened, too caught in the noise of living to see it clearly. Peace does not arrive when life becomes easier. It arrives when we finally learn what we no longer need to hold. So, if you are over 70, listen to this gently but directly. Life may not be asking you to do more. It may simply be inviting you to arrive fully. In this moment, in this breath, in this quiet and irreplaceable chapter that belongs entirely to you, live lightly. The door is open, and if you have lived long enough to reach this chapter of life, your presence here already says something important. It means you are still reflecting, still learning, still open to understanding life a little more deeply. In many ways, that may be the quiet strength of growing older, not having all the answers but caring enough to keep asking the right questions.